I am Joshua K. Sabra, Esquire, and he is Dr. Miles Salisbury. And you are listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, where we share tactics, techniques, and protocol to improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while you walk the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. In today's episode of the Miles Ahead podcast, Dr. Miles and I discuss what the hell is wrong with men. We talk about the poor health, financial, social outcomes that men are facing today, and we begin to break down the top 3 reasons that men are falling behind. We sink into reason number 1 today, which centers around lack of self-awareness and personal empathy. What causes it? How does it show up in life? And more, all in this episode. Stay tuned. And we are live. Welcome, Miles.
Dankeschön.
Excited today. We've got a lot of fun things to talk about. Specifically, I have been listening to Marilyn Manson a lot in the last 24 hours.
Like up close and personal.
Very up close and personal. I'll post some to my IG, some video I got from concert that me and Adrian and my girlfriend and his wife went to. But God, he played stuff from 96.
OG stuff.
Dang, Antichrist Superstar. What a champion. He looked great. It looked like he'd lost some weight. He was mobile again. It looked like he'd been working out. He didn't look a day over 60.
Not bad. Makeup helps.
I don't know how old Brian Warner really is. But anyways, it made me feel a little bit like a teenage goth kid. Having fun.
Back to high school again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stayed out past 10. It was great.
The beautiful people.
Yeah. What do you listen to?
Just pull up my phone because I don't remember, but the last thing that was on shuffle was Stay Gold by the Big Pink. Good band.
Big Pink. Stay Gold.
Stay Gold. Good song.
That's different than Stay Gold and Pony Boy? From
Is that the fucking
Outsiders.
Outsiders, yeah. Whoa, that's me back to middle school right there.
So good.
Look at that.
Stay Gold and Pony Boy.
The Greasers and the Socias, was that book?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Look at that.
That's right.
Man, that memory is weird. The hippocampus still works. That's good.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about what parts of your brain are working today, because we're going to talk about men's brains. This episode, I'm really stoked on. This 3-parter, we're going to divide and conquer. Kind of the modus operandi for us starting a podcast about mental and physical health. We're going to go on a deep dive on what is wrong with men, and try to sort out what are the obstacles that men face to maximize or even restore their mental and physical health. And to frame up this conversation, like, what do we even mean by that? If you're in the interwebs at all, in the last probably 5 years, this men's crisis has been talked about a lot. And when people say men's crisis, they're talking about from a physical health and a mental health perspective. A financial health, a relational health, in all aspects. But on a tactical sense, what they're referring to is the suicide rate for men has always been about 3 times higher than women, meaning that men are 3 times more likely to kill themselves than women, partly because they use more lethal means when they attempt suicide, but partly because of mental health reasons, which we're going to get into.
And more testosterone, more aggression.
Fully.
Natural, just natural.
Well, that number's jumped up to 4x, and it's increasing. So the pandemic changing the way we relate and work and how we live our lives and what the economy looks like has been a lot of positives, a lot of negatives for the American people. But for men, we have adapted more slowly, and some of the consequences we're still seeing evolve. About 9.5 million men have taken themselves out of the economy, meaning that they're unemployed and they're not seeking employment. And that it's not because they come from wealth. I mean, even Hunter Biden has technically a job. He is listed as employed in his resume. So these people have taken themselves out of the workforce and are not involved in any formal role in the economy. At the same time, men are enrolling less in college. They're graduating at much lower rates than women graduate from college. In urban areas, women under 30 out earn men. And the women under 30 are more likely to own a home. It's all good news. There's not taking anything away from.
No, women are crushing right now.
Yeah, women are just doing great. These are all new stats for women, which is exciting for them. But the trend is going down for men, and it's continuing down. We haven't hit the trough yet for these trends. A third of men under 30 are celibate, not by choice. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Which should ring alarm bells. That's not normal for men to not have sex at a higher rate at that age range. I mean, your testosterone's at an all-time high.
Yeah.
What's going on? Is it porn? Is it fear of going up to women? Is it dating sucks? I don't want to get rejected. What's going on?
I mean, books have been written about this, and I won't belabor the point too much on things I don't fully understand. But we will get into what's keeping them in general from health. But yeah, that's a big problem socially. First of all, everybody should be getting laid. Man, woman. Oh, not children. Sorry. Men and women should all be getting laid at whatever age range. Everybody should have
consensual
access
sex
to love and consensual sex. If you're listening to this podcast, that definitely applies to you. But it's not easy for sure, and this is certainly a strange. This is different. It's an epidemic of a different kind. So socially, financially, physically, I mean, men have shorter lifespans than women on average, 7.2 years, I think is the last time but if you get these suicide rates keep going up, that number will on average go down.
Bring it down. Yeah.
So I think controlling for some of these early death variables, maybe men, less likely to go to the doctor, less likely to have a primary care provider, less likely to do preventative medicine on themselves, less likely to have strong interpersonal relationships, less likely to have trusted friendships with the people on whom they can rely. And the list goes on and on and on. So
living lives of quiet desperation. I can't remember who said that. It was another Churchillian drift. It wasn't Churchill. Nietzsche, maybe? I can't remember. Rilke? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But powerful statement.
Sounds like a Nietzsche or yeah, exactly. Something smart.
Just Google it. It's out there.
Google it. Okay. So what's going on with men? I have been in the health and fitness industry for 20 years, and I've observed that you will have observed, if you go into most fitness clubs, a powerlifting gym will look a little bit different. An underground garage gym will look different. Kabuki Strength, a world famous strength training organization out in Clackamas, Oregon, will look different. But in general, we're going to talk in broad strokes here. Men will make up roughly a third at most of the gym memberships. So they're less likely to have a gym membership, much less likely to hire a personal trainer or engage in self-development coaching. And that I would consider a personal trainer both health and self-development, and because you're skill building essentially around fitness. But men enroll in fitness programs at lower rates. They consume self-development material at much lower rates. They participate in, you know, sort of these, small box, big box gyms at lower rates. And that some of that will change if you get into like a Planet Fitness or, what I call these hands-off gyms where you don't have to engage with people very much. The membership rates go, big box gyms, they go up a little bit, but you're still going to see more women than men in them. At least the participation rates will be higher for women. So, having coached men for the last 20 years, both in the Army and in the and in the private sector, men and women respond differently to coaching. They respond differently to environmental cues. They have different adherence rates, which is like how closely their behavior mimics the program that they're supposed to do. They have much different outcomes. Now, from a raw fitness outcome, people will say, well, men can get better health outcomes because they have more testosterone. They can build muscle more easily. They can, recover faster. They can train at higher volumes and things like that. So they do have higher testosterone, so they can, lift heavier weights and build more muscle, to a small degree. But if you aggregate out over the long term, it's not super impactful to, the variables that we're discussing today. So what's going on with men? I'm going to tell a story about myself being a young man going through these exact same problems, but I just want to kick it over to you, Miles. How do you see any correlation to this in your practice? I know you already skew towards men, so you may not have the breakdown that I talked about, but what does that look like from the mental health side?
That's a lot of layers. I'm thinking as you're talking a lot of the cultural aspects and trauma and the past few decades, wars. I think a lot of it has to do with absent fathers, not getting your quote unquote initiation into manhood or not having a model of what that actually looks like, healthy masculinity. And so men are kind of just either don't know what to do or they're tapping out. And there are a legion amount of distractions, right? Porn, alcohol, video games.
The good stuff.
We can just avoid all day. And so if their moms took care of them a lot, they over-index maybe towards the feminine. And then if they get into a relationship, they may be expecting the female to do a lot of the work and be the mommy, which any healthy woman's going to hate at some point. They do not want to be our emotional mothers. You see this with the nice guys, happy wife, happy life. If I just make her happy, then everything will be fine. I don't have to do anything. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on the woman. And since women are crushing right now, that's good, but they're also going to take up that slack. Oh shit, well, I guess I have to be the head of household now. If we have kids, I guess I'll be the sole breadwinner. I guess he's going to try to figure it out. It's really confusing. And if you don't have that strong masculine presence of what to do, you're going to probably default to let your spouse do it for you, your girlfriend do it for you. That leads to bad outcomes, as we know. So that's one layer. The other side is the over indexation of hypermasculinity, where I've got to be the sole breadwinner. I don't have time for emotions and relationship. I got to work 80 hours a week. I don't have time for my kids. That side of things where you're not getting enough internal work. You're not prioritizing yourself at all. You're putting all on your family, putting all on your kids, which is, it's a noble thing to do, but they need you emotionally. You can't just be the guy that brings home the paycheck, that brings home the food. That's
sure you can.
You can, but that's going to cause legion amount of problems. Then you're going to be another version of the absent father because you're not going to be home. So it's way over index on both sides. We need to bring these things back in the middle. Culturally, I think they're causing a lot of issues. So we just got to look out for that. And so you're talking about self-prioritization, not putting yourself first in the physical category. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I was just curious as to the engagement levels of the conversation around mental health. Like, do you notice that fewer men reach out to you or reach out to mental health in general, what the ratios are in the mental health sphere?
I see it actually changing. I see a big men's movement coming where we're going to try to right this ship. Like I'm deep in the middle of all of that with like Connor Beaton's work, Trevor Boehm's work, the Man Civilized and Man Talks podcasts, Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. You just see it coming. You see online men's groups happening. Like Connor has the Alliance, Trevor has the Uncivilized Nation. So you're seeing guys knowing they need to do something, and they just need to know that there is something that exists out there. And so, guys, we're on apparently on YouTube a lot. So you stumble across these videos like, oh, there's this place where guys hang out. And the other bad part is like that's these red pill communities and such where the men get attracted to as well. And you can see why, because they're looking for anything. And sometimes that's the easiest thing to grab onto because it's so black and white. If you gravitate towards what I'm talking to, you're going to have to do some work. It's more the integration of masculine and feminine, but that's going to grow you. That's going to give you what you're looking for. So we see that happening. I see a lot more guys coming to therapy, or their spouse says you need to go to therapy, and that's why you're here. Again, the feminine doing the work. But at some point they're saying, I'm not doing the work. You go get therapy or I'm out. And sometimes that's enough for guys to get the impetus to make change. So I see that happening as well. So that's not all doom and gloom. So I do see it changing, but I think as the stigma of getting mental health treatment drops, which it is happening, which is good, you'll see more men coming into getting therapy and getting that, maybe seeing a male therapist instead of a female therapist. There aren't a lot of male therapists. It's way over indexed into the feminine. I don't know why. It used to be the opposite. Now therapy is very feminine oriented, and we need to bring a masculine oriented sense back and integrate the two. And you see that happening. So as more men therapists become therapists or psychiatrists or whatever they're doing, you're going to see that option for men more. And I think that's going to start engendering good, healthy integration of masculine and feminine and good change. But it's sort of a long game. We'll see what happens. There are plenty of people not doing that. So, in my little microcosm, I see good things.
Yeah.
But they're coming here for that. So of course I'm going to see that. So
well, that's great. No, that's it's encouraging. The outcome. Okay. So the premise of this conversation, the frame of this conversation is if men's health outcomes are precariously low and dropping from the mental, physical, financial, relational perspective, why is that? What is happening? And how do we get here? And this isn't a breakdown of like the socioeconomics and the cultural shifts, although we'll touch on those. We're going to stick with like the individual. We're going to generalize to men, and then we're going to zoom in on the individual. Okay. And we'll talk about the three sort of most primary, I guess. Calling something three and primary is not the way to do it. The three most obvious issues that I've observed and that Miles has observed over the last 100 years of our combined experience. The three biggest obstacles to success, which we've broken down into the problem of self-prioritization, the problem of aging and hormones. This again, we're talking about health, and the problem of expectations, which of course all those have cultural implications. So we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to talk about the number one issue, because these things cascade towards each other. But I think the primary issue is I'm gonna tell a story about me going through all of these things we just talked about: depression, isolation, celibacy. That was my 20s for a whole year of my tour in Germany, almost a year. Mm-hmm. And it changed so fast once my environment changed a little bit.
I bet.
And but it'll help frame this conversation of self-prioritization and self-awareness, and how the male brain responds to functional changes.
So your story will integrate both the physical and psychological that we're going to talk about.
That's right.
Brilliant.
So I'm 19 years old, turning 20. I'm 19 years old. I'm stationed in Bavaria, Germany. I'm in the army
Where at?
at a base called Bad Aibling, which is a small town with a hot springs. These baths
Bath.
these baths that spring up all over Germany. It's a beautiful, it's like the Sound of Music, foothills of the Alps.
Oh, you're real far south.
Yeah, rolling hills. They call it Upper Bavaria, which is paradoxically southern Bavaria. That's where the hills start, and it just looks gorgeous. It's very rural, very farmy. So this small base, it's closed now, but I'm sure you can visit it. We gave it back to Germany. I think literally the year after I was there. So I moved there, and it was already being decommissioned. So the units on there were, preparing and moving their gear out. And when a unit doesn't have a mission to deliver, so if you have an infantry unit that's not training for
Work up.
to do something in combat, they have like maintenance duties, but the army is a very poor moving company. So I'm 19, I'm restless, I'm in Bavaria, beer is good, without a mission, and teenagers and young soldiers get into trouble. So you're working generously banker's hours, in the motor pool, or, doing some, technical work, learning, but you can only do so much, admin, and you're playing a lot of video games. I was playing a lot of video games. I was working out twice a day.
No weekends off either, by the way, right? Or did you?
Totally weekends off.
Oh, so you were legit banker's hours.
Yeah, legit banker's hours.
Deployment's slightly different.
No, so we were getting ready to move to a different site in middle Germany. So I didn't ever really have a job, a role. I had access to alcohol and video games, and there wasn't a lot of people my age to like hang out with or hook up with that I enjoyed talking to.
You mean outside of the wire, or like
inside the wire?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, if you want to travel, but again, the town was small, so you'd have to really cruise to like.
It's like a dwarf almost.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So to go to Munich or some, mid-sized town was a bit of a project, but you could do that. And of course we did. But the frame I'm saying is, without a role, without a function, with a lot of time on my hands and access to numbing agents, I was super depressed. By depressed, I mean like having a hard time getting out of bed. I would still get out of bed, but I had to work out and things like that. But even though I was working out, I felt like trash. I was emotionally isolated. I had like a couple of good friends. I had a roommate that was, we'd play video games and hang out and, and go out drinking. And then we realized that we were total alcoholics and we stopped drinking, but we were still depressed. Like it was just a depressing time, which is sad because Bavaria is so gorgeous.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, there was no why you're there. What's the point?
Right. So, not having sex, not having fun, not having a job, but that's like college. Like you're learning, sure, you're doing stuff, but you're not doing anything with it,
right,
besides getting approval from your superiors, which is like cool.
Maybe you get a ribbon if you're lucky.
Yeah, and like I don't know what it was like for the rest of the soldiers in that base, but I remember just being super run down for a full year, and then as soon as we moved and left that environment and went to a new base, my platoon sergeant took me aside and said, "Hey, we're asking for volunteers to do to support Operation Enduring Freedom."
Is this when you wanted to do SF and the guy pulled you?
No, that's
a different
this
thing.
This is all. I mean, that's why I was interested in changing jobs so that I could have more fun and more of a role.
Gotcha.
But I volunteered for this Operation Enduring Freedom, which was a blind assignment, meaning you're just saying yes to go wherever the Army needs you. And it turned out that was to the 173rd, who was headed to Afghanistan in March of 2005.
So you felt a little more hopeful at this point.
Well, I didn't feel anything. I didn't know what any of that meant. I just signed. I just went to
You just wanted out.
my company commander and said, I'm volunteering for this operation, which a tasking comes down from, big army and says, take volunteers up to a certain number. If we don't get that number with volunteers, we'll volunteer them. So I volunteered, and about a month later, we had enough to form a platoon. We started to define the mission, started to train. We met our company commander from the 173rd, Brian Hooper, and became clear that we had an objective, we had a goal, we had a time frame, and then it went from no job, do whatever you want, 3-day weekends, getting a pass, which is fun. And you should, and travel and enjoying Europe,
Yep.
to 7 days a week, get after it.
That's why deployment hours.
And then all of a sudden, more like morale shoots up. So my sense of confidence, my sense of self, the pressure on me goes up, and I like that. And all of a sudden, I start to gel. I start to cohese as a person, and we start to cohese as a unit. But it takes a mission, and it takes a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
And
adversity.
We'll call it a challenge.
Yeah, challenge. There you go.
Yeah. And I fully excel in as a 20-year-old in helping get the unit ready physically and mentally. My role was of a direct leader. I was a young sergeant at the time, and that's basically still what I do to this day, is get people ready for their life. So a very defining moment for me. But I'm sharing that to say how easy somebody can slip into disconnect and despair with access to, an American lifestyle, drugs, alcohol, distraction, and without a sense of purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
And a camaraderie that comes from working together to solve a problem.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier with our culture. I think a lot of boys or men don't have a purpose, upward mobility, or a squad men community. Just isolated, and you're going to feel depressed. And so look at that one little tweak, and you had like a 180 almost.
100%. And it sucked balls. So like none of it, none of it you ask for. And the thing is, like, I work with people in a holistic, I call it a transformation program or a metabolic restoration program, whatever. But it's like, it's a lot of pressure, and they feel it. They're like, this sucks. Because like you change the way you eat, you change the way you sleep, you change the way you move, that you change I call it taking on the path of the warrior. It isn't, it's fun in a way, like you're learning things, right? Miles got to learn some sumo deadlifts today and like change the way his hips are working.
Not going to walk tomorrow very well.
But it's not fun, and like, it's type 2 fun. It's fun later.
Yes.
It's fun to say you did it. It's not fun to do.
It wasn't also unfun.
You learn to love it. So how this relates to the primary problem of self-awareness and self-prioritization. It isn't an information problem that was keeping me. I was working out. I was educating myself. I was enrolled in college courses. I was like doing the stuff, and I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't happy. And it wasn't like, if you would have told me what to do, I would have intellectually agreed with you, but I wouldn't have chosen to work 7 days a week. I wouldn't have chosen to, like, there's an element of change that, like, my agency to choose the easy path had to get interrupted.
Yes.
And that's a threatening thing.
Yes.
And part of why we need external programs and environmental changes is because we have to interrupt our own agency to some degree in order to get a different outcome. Because like today, you and me and Adrian were lifting, and like, it didn't feel good to do it the correct way. And I needed accountability, and I needed someone to keep me in the movement until I learned it correctly. And like, it's very few people can build the ladder and climb it at the same time. That's what we do for our clients, our patients, is we build the ladder and then we help them up the ladder.
Yeah, we don't push them.
But we also don't ask them to assemble the ladder.
Correct.
Like, okay, pick out 3, interpersonal skills you want to work on today.
What are those?
Yeah. So when we're talking about what's going on with men, part of this like agency interruption piece that is going on that needs to happen is, I think it's based from this increase in testosterone that men's brains have from an early age, or puberty, an early age. So whenever puberty happens for that person, testosterone has an inverse relationship with empathy, or specifically oxytocin. Am I getting this right? In the HPA axis?
I'm not sure.
So testosterone reduces the amount of other emotions that you can feel. It increases the tunnel vision and focus. And so it drives out awareness of outside stimuli. So part of the way that men's brains work is very functional, very literal. And it's like, that's Viking in that way, which is kind of a relief. It's like, no, just tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to get a little buy-in from them, but they have to physically do it to feel the changes.
This is a spectrumy thing too, by the way.
It's a what?
It's spectrumy.
That's correct. Yeah. So we're generalizing here, but in general, that with increased testosterone comes reduced empathy, and with that includes self-empathy. And
good point.
The amount of self-awareness and self-compassion that is innate to men is, I think, a little bit reduced because of that physiological change. So what that looks like in day to day is, I don't really like, you're talking about our role as provider and as breadwinner and protector and those things, which are all really important. But I think a lot of men don't know when they're eroding their own mental and physical health in service of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes, I mean, and again, men and women, it's spectrumy, but we're focused on men here. So zooming in, men will negotiate down their workouts, their sleep, their meal planning, their meal. They'll even skip meals,
cut corners,
and that's not cheating. It doesn't even occur to them that that's even detrimental. Be like, oh, it's just like, I'm just missing this meal. You can go without brushing your teeth once. It doesn't kill you. But if you do that every third day, you're only brushing your teeth like 4 out of 7 days, right? Like, so what?
What do you think is going to happen?
Right. So there is a subtle erosion that, until you become transparent with your own input behaviors, you don't even know it's occurring. And like my example for this is always when I got the Apple Watch, I was like, I hate wearables. They're dumb. Like, they're not doing anything that you can't just use a journal for.
Then you forgot that guys like data.
Well, and then what I just noticed is how wrong I was about what my life looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I work out every day. And then the thing's like, you worked out 14 times last month.
Oh,
wait. It felt like
I thought
more.
It was at least 3 weeks.
Yeah. And I'm not a liar. I'm just completely unaware of all those quote unquote exceptions.
Gets distorted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the way that the male brain works is a little bit less self-awareness. I think this is also apparent when we suffer, back to some of the framing of the conversation, where men are losing out in the workplace, not because of lack of hard skills, but lack of soft skills. The EQ, the inability to read the room, and
which women are great at.
Stereotypically, right? But the thing that makes an asshole isn't what they think, it's how they show up, right? Because everybody has inappropriate thoughts. Everybody has inconvenient ideology. Everybody has something. But people who are charismatic or warm, they 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 don't give that to everybody all the time, right? And they know when they're doing it. So that's appropriate use of the hard edges. And a lot of times, men have struggled to know when is a good time to broach a certain subject, when what they're saying isn't being received well by the other person. And, then comes into the storytelling, and this goes back to the self-awareness, like we were talking about with Dr. Doctor
Mhm.
last week, where he was like, I might be right, but I'm not getting the result I want. So I have to change the way I'm doing this. Self-awareness.
Mhm.
Like, I want a clean house, but harping at my girlfriend for every time she grabs another cup is just alienating both of us. So how do I get what I want?
Mhm.
He
Soft
call-
skills.
Yeah, he calls it cock blocking himself, but that's all right. So it's that self-awareness piece, right? And this comes into, I think it's born into this reality from physiology, and then it becomes cultural by the way that we talk to each other and talk to men. And the way that, like, even men would say we prefer to be, like, I prefer to be doing things rather, like, when Miles and I hang out, we don't sit across from each other. I mean, sometimes we do, but we don't sit across from each other and drink coffee and talk about our feelings. We do a podcast, we do a workout, we work on projects, but it's not, it's bonding time, but it's not hard empathy bonding time where we're, it's not quite as intimate as maybe some other relationships.
Yeah, like you were saying, that men sit obliquely rather than face to face, which we are sitting face to face now, but that's by necessity for recording. If we were in the setup, we'd be sitting obliquely, probably unconsciously.
That's right. So so we're jumping, or we're trying to expose the whole, like, the whole part of this elephant, right? So if we're trying to figure out, like, we're a blind person trying to feel out the problem of the elephant, and the elephant is poor health outcomes for men. When you're touching this lack of self-awareness, it might feel like a tusk, it might feel like an ear, because it's going to apply differently to the person that you are, who's listening. So if you're listening, this can apply a little bit differently than it applied to me.
Mhm.
But for me, I don't know really how many workouts I'm getting unless I monitor it. I don't really know how much I'm eating unless I monitor it. And I don't really know how much I'm sleeping unless I monitor it, because my story about what is happening is much different than what is actually happening.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with a client who's a guy, the level of negotiation, and, like, I find coaching men difficult sometimes because they press on to my boundaries about time, about what adherence to the program looks like, what the right amount of working out, or what the, how much of what counts for being on plan. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because I'm like, we already we negotiated this. That was what the plan was for. Then with the commitment phase is when you no longer plan and you execute. And but the going back and renegotiating the plan is renegotiating the outcome. And because of that adherence problem, and that people don't think that's what they're doing, but they're negotiating down the outcome when they negotiate down the plan. And there you go. So I'm beating up on the lack of self-awareness and self-prioritization because it's very prevalent, and you could watch it in your health outcomes. If you're like me, you don't know. Like, I'll post pictures on my Instagram today, just for, and reference this podcast, because I didn't think I was fat 4 months ago when I started my diet. And then I lost like 18 pounds and I didn't really notice it. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
You got an
How-
8-pack.
Well, but like, how long had I been going the other direction and not noticing it?
Right. It's a long game either way to choose which way you want to go.
For sure. And I never would have said, no one, I mean, out of shape depends on your reference point.
Mhm.
But the point is we delude ourselves constantly, and men and women do this, but if you're listening to this podcast, this episode's about men's ability to do that and how impressive it is. Mark Manson, he dropped 60 pounds.
Damn.
And he talks about that painful process. And he's like, every phase of it, it was just like, he's like, your ability to delude yourself is impressive to you.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you actually start to like monitor, like, oh, okay, I'm going to have like a Hershey's Kiss. All right, I had 3. Nope, I had 7. Like,
Yep. Trickster mind.
It goes fast. Okay. I went long on the self-delusion, self-awareness, self-prioritization. But you kicked it off with the, men are the breadwinners and men are the protectors and providers. Up until now, where women are destroying us and economically, and if a woman out earns you, she's 91% of divorces by women. Okay. No,
initiated by women.
Initiated by women if they out earn the man.
Yeah, it's a factor.
So, bro,
if they don't feel good in a relationship,
you better make sure you're earning your job. Just make sure that she's not working that hard, right? Make sure you get that foot rub in there.
Well, yeah, it's some of this is not just the financial; it's the emotional. She's working double duty, and like she's like, "Fuck this! I'm out of here. I have upward mobility. I have finances. I don't need you. Bye." Like, I kind of makes sense. Like, we're dropping the ball here.
Yeah, so you have to knock it out of the park in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to take a page out of their playbook, and as the gender roles sort of we're going towards more of an equality. We both got to learn our inner masculine or inner feminine. It's all shifted. This whole like trad life thing. Like, yeah, you can still do that, but both parties have to agree that's what you're doing. And if you're not aligned there could be disaster. So make sure you're working the family life, you're working the emotional life, you're working the soft skills. You can't just be what Trevor Boehm calls the split off of like the Marlboro man and the snag, the sensitive new age guy. Like if you're going off in those directions, you're going to get divorced. You're going to be lonely. One is the toxic male, then one's the nice guy. And those both are bad outcomes.
So true. The founder of Quest Nutrition and the Impact Theory guy, Tom Bilyeu, thank you. He was talking about his wife, and they founded the company with his wife, and they scaled it. And 8 years in, they continued to renegotiate what their roles were. And it started out, she was like, "I want you to be a provider." Like, she's Greek, and her dad's traditional Greek, and wanted someone to take care of his daughter.
She grew up in London, but yeah, she's Greek origins. Dad's Greek, yeah.
And so that they start out, "I want you to take care of my daughter. I want to be taken care of." And then a couple years in, she was like, "Okay, I want to be a career woman now. Like, I got it. You've figured this out, but I want to do my own thing, or I want to, build my professional chops."
Mm-hmm.
So she gets in the workforce, and that's great. And that goes for a few more years. And then he's like, "Okay, actually, I want to feel taken care of by you. I want you to provide lunch and dinner, or some sort of, I want to feel taken care of around food."
Mm.
And so they negotiated out these unspoken expectations.
That's it. Negotiate it.
And she was like, "Okay, so does that mean I have to actually cook it, or can I order it and DoorDash it, or, whatever? And then when it gets here, do you want me to hand it to you? Do I have to plate it?
Are we eating together?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you mean by this?" And so he's like, "No, I want you to take care of it. I don't want to be involved. However you do, that's fine. And you don't have to plate it for me, but you let me know that it's arrived and it's here for me, and that would be enough."
Yeah, it sort of makes them feel loved.
That's correct. It's just that simple thing of like, my dinner and my lunches and dinners taken care of.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted, to feel that it was taken care of. And she was like, "Okay." And then boom, frictionless. Yeah. No big deal. And I think like it's very difficult to even become self-aware if without self-awareness. Articulating that is challenging.
Bingo.
And then layered on that is the reservation about the self-judgment. Like, I need something from my wife. Is that even good? Or I need something from my husband. Is that even good? And or is this a valid need? Is this like, And in my experience with my girlfriend, we do a good job of making it safe for the other person to express their needs, especially when it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. And like, uh, I forgot what our term for we talked about this morning. It was like being bristly, a little bristly about, having a conversation, a little uncomfortable. That's good.
That's normal.
Yes.
You can become closer for that when you have repair.
Amen.
And I think people are afraid of repair because they've never seen it in their childhood. They think, oh, conflict is scary because parents said that, and then weird things happened. We didn't know what was going on, and it was scary, but they never saw the parents like repair by themselves, or they never did repair. And so I thought, shit, this thing called the conflict, we should never have it because it equals scary things, bad things in your kid mind. And you still have that belief system into your adulthood. Conflict must be avoided at all costs because people go away from me. I don't feel safe in my environment. Bad shit happens, or maybe I got physically abused. Who knows? But that doesn't have to be the case in adulthood. You can learn to do skillful conflict, and then you get to repair, which is like, oh, I see your side, you see mine. Just like the example you just gave with Tom Billieu, like, oh, that was solved, and they probably feel closer now. He feels loved, and she feels like she's doing a loving act. One little sliver of the relationship just got real good because of that. But imagine like death by 1,000 wounds by not having conflict. How about, I don't know, what's the opposite of death by 1,000 wounds? Love by 1,000 kisses?
Yeah.
Of doing these little relationship fixes called repairs. That's depth of relationship. But we need to be taught this.
And that's where the people this is a whole rabbit hole, but people start to create stories around what, like, oh, well, I need to divorce my partner because I need somebody who cooks dinner. My wife doesn't cook dinner.
Yeah, let's just nuke it over that one issue.
Well, it becomes an entire person that you believe your partner's incapable of being.
Yeah. It's delusion sometimes.
It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes you just, luckily my girlfriend's pretty good about asking for what she wants. I try to kick her in the shin and make her be a little loud with it sometimes.
Good.
But she's pretty good about it. And that's good. It's a good habit, and it's a practice, just like all these things, right?
Absolutely.
So like the first time that you have a crucial conversation, it's like exhausting because you're like, I don't want to do it wrong. I'm scared.
Yeah. Just like a new sumo deadlift.
Yeah.
My legs were shaking.
Your butt's sore before you even leave the gym.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's just like, okay, every Friday, sumo deadlifts, 3 sets of 10.
Yep. It's easy.
So we're not going to get into solutions about the self-awareness problem and the self-prioritization problem yet, but we're going to come to those in episode 3 probably. And we'll have some downloadables for you. But in the interim, what does this look like? How do you function with if I'm working with men and women, because this has to happen in any coaching relationship. It is because life happens. Like, so of course there's going to be, a lack of adherence. Like, if I pulled up my app tracking, I'm not 100% on my stuff either. So what happens is when someone has that compromised the input and they say like, okay, I can't make my strength training workout on Tuesday. Then when I, in a coaching relationship, they come with the solution. So, hey, I'm not going to be able to make my strength training workout on Thursday. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do a pyramid strength training workout at home Friday morning before I go to get on my flight. And what that does is they understand that it doesn't let them off the hook for their goal.
Keeps the habit alive.
And the activity stays, the habit is protected, and that the activity has a slight change.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is that keeps the habit loop going, to your point, and it keeps the progress going, because it doesn't really matter whether you get a home run or a base hit. The fact that you're just taking the at bat every time is what creates the long-term success.
Yeah. It's like meditation. When you show up on the cushion, you've won the day. Just ass on cushion. That's it. What happens from there is it's all gravy.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, we're going to close this episode on prioritization. Well, on this 3-parter on the first part of part 1 of 3 on self-awareness and self-prioritization to say that I it one of my peeves is I don't like people who generalize. And when someone says, so this is something as I hear frequently about men and women is like, like you can't trust women, you can't trust men. And I think about it's difficult to be honest about something you don't even know is happening. And it's really easy to talk yourself out of something that you want, whether it's your health goal, a relationship, a career move. It's really because of the discomfort in what you have to do and how you have to change. Because ultimately, you're changing yourself to get a new outcome, whether it's professionally, or economically, or intrapersonally, or whatever. You're changing how you approach things. But like, it's not like some sort of character flaw. That self-awareness is like it's a skill. It's a sensitivity that can be enhanced to some degree. It's easier. There's built-in insulation and resistance to self-awareness, depending on your chemical makeup, your biology, your background, how you were raised,
Many layers, yeah.
how you grew up, or not raised, is in my case. But
Lord of the Flies.
exactly. Yes, one of my many stepfathers in the room right now.
It's not me. You can hear him in the background. We should have just mic'd him up.
But
he's the guy that ran us through the sumo deadlifts.
No, yeah. Well,
we'll give him a quick shout out so people are like, "Who's this guy talking in the back?"
Adrian Weber. I'll tag him on the IG, so people can see him. But the solution, the way that we behave is a function of what gets rewarded. And to your point about what men represent in our culture, masculinity represents our culture, rather, because that's those things about providing, protecting. I would argue are masculine traits. Women can have masculine traits and crush it at protecting and providing, and men can as well. But the way that we the way that we gender men and the way that we treat masculine men in our culture is changing, and I think our outcomes are a function of what gets rewarded in the environment. Mm-hmm. And rewarding men for having economic success or having, whatever stereotypical definition of masculinity is, that's how you get more of it. So if you want to reward more holistically healthy outcomes, it's talking about having conversations like these, where you can make it safe, give people space and time to reflect on these things. And
it's needed, especially with guys sitting around talking like this, especially with guys who don't have a lot of outlet for that.
That's right. And I think in the health, just to close up the health conversation with like self-awareness and self-prioritization, the accountability kind of is viewed as a bad word, but it's the healing. It's the beginning of the healing process, because when you start to receive the actual consequences for your actions, when I realized, speak for myself, that I was fat, not because of genetics or age, because literally I wasn't working out as much as I thought I was. I wasn't eating as well as I thought I was. I wasn't sleeping as well as I thought I was. Once I started to get clear on what was actually happening and took accountability for it, not blaming other things, not storytelling about, well, it was a stressful time, and all those things can be true, but every layer of storytelling that you add to that is just less power do you have to influence the outcome.
Yes, and if we didn't get taught accountability by someone in our caregiver land, typically dads, you wouldn't even know what that is.
And especially like parenting, if the parent doesn't want to take responsibility and accountability, that bleeds off onto your kids.
Sadly.
That accountability is bad. Being held accountable is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for change, and I'm excited to talk about the number 2 and number 3 biggest problems to obstacles to health outcomes for men, which are aging and hormones was one.
Is that number 2? Yeah.
Yeah, that was number 2.
That's
and
the next
then,
podcast.
Yeah, number 3 is managing expectations, and we'll talk about the dynamics involved with that. But we'll have a very simple workbook or worksheet once we get through all this for you to utilize to dive into these things yourself. And you also have more information about my upcoming metabolic restoration program for men. So if you're listening to this and you're a dude and you're also tired of being fat and out of shape, awesome. And maybe we can work together.
Boom.
Excited. Till next time, Miles.
Yeah. Do all the things like subscribe. And remember, if you do this now, you get the gold star of being an early adopter of this podcast. So like take a screenshot on YouTube. If you're like, oh, I am subscriber number 13, like that's going to be a fun thing in the future. If we can get this thing going. And we do need your help to spread the word. We're actually trying to do that now and do the whole, put it on social media and YouTube and all that fun stuff. So we'll be more findable. And then send it to someone you think would benefit, especially if you're a guy listening to this, or if you're a woman and your man needs it, like send it to him. Like we're here for both of y'all. And we'll get to step 2 next week.
Questions, comments, concerns.
Yeah, please. I'm excited. If you have more questions about what's wrong with men, we'll definitely be answering them in the next 2 episodes. So we'll include your questions. So hit us up on either YouTube, Spotify.
Spotify has a poll, or you can leave comments. YouTube, you can leave comments. Yeah.
Bang.
Yep. All right. Until then, we are out.
Peace.